Hey guys, it's Liv here. In today's video, I wanted to break down, just in general, what my thoughts on all of the recent new information we've gotten over the past week. This is going to cover both the old stuff that happened a few days ago, and I'll try and be brief with that, but I'm also going to go over all the new stuff that was just revealed at Worlds, which has a huge impact on the metagame in my opinion. If you guys enjoy and want to see more content like this, like and subscribe for more, and let me know what your favorite piece of new information is in these games. With that said, let's break down everything, starting with the Clefairy outbreak that's been confirmed for Scarlet and Violet. Now, this is one's actually kind of a huge deal in my opinion. Mostly not the fact that we have a mouse outbreak for it, but it confirms, as far as I'm aware, this is confirmation that Clefairy will be in the Teal mask and the Indigo disc. Now, maybe I just missed it in another trailer, I very well might have, but even just having Clefairy in the games is actually a pretty big deal, and having fairly easy access to it early on in the format will be great for most players. But Clefairy is a really noteworthy Pokemon competitive. For anyone who doesn't know, Clefable's kind of whatever. Singles players, I guess, good job eating and hating your metagame again, but doubles players enjoy having Clefairy. This thing is really valuable. It's a great Violet user, which is a really unique item, especially in this gen. Chansey doesn't even have like a niche viability, for lack of a better way to put it, which, not to say that ever did, but like you'd occasionally see it on minimized teams. Chansey doesn't even have that going for it anymore though, just due to how many moves that it had that were kind of useful that got cut. So we don't even have like Chansey as the second best Violet user. It's just Clefairy. Clefairy would literally be the only thing, unless if one of the new Pokemon that I'll get into in a bit that got an evolution is viable, but again, I think the evolution will just outclass it personally. So Clefairy actually has kind of a place here as really the only usable Violet user, which is pretty valuable in a team. Having an item slot that just will have no competition will be huge, considering VGC does run off of an item class format. And when we also factor in the fact that this thing has incredible support, even just through typical level up moves from previous generations, this will be a huge offensive, well, not offensive, it'll be a huge support powerhouse on offensive teams. When we consider some moves like Follow Me that are level up moves, as well as the fact that this will probably get Moonlight as well through level up, it's already two really valuable options. Protect is most likely not getting cut, so really as long as it gets one of things like Icy Wind for speed control, Thunder Wave for speed control and for status condition to potentially annoy opponents, Sing even would be okay. Like, you have a lot of options that could potentially become viable on Clefairy, and this has a plethora of other moves as well through things like TRs and TMs that will most likely be introduced into the game again. But even just looking off of stuff that's already like a Clefairy staple, this will be at least an objectively okay option. I don't know for sure if this will take over Mousehold usage. Frankly, I think Mousehold will still be kind of viable. But one big thing, well, actually two big things, is one, this offers actual speed control, which Mousehold does not offer, and two, it's a lot bulkier than Mousehold. So for a Friend Guard mon, just keeping it alive longer will be valuable, especially when you do have built-in recovery. Now, I will say that, to be fair, Mousehold definitely will have some use on certain cores. Things like Annihilate will never really go with Clefairy, in my opinion, because of the beat-up strategy just being too good, and also a lot of typing 50-50s that Mousehold provides. And also Mousehold just having Super Fang is going to be definitely valuable on some teams, more so than Clefairy's utility will be. But things like Teal Pulse and Clefairy will also be really useful in like bulky comps. I can't imagine that any Trick Room comp will be going to Mousehold anyway, and having things like Clefairy to help support mons like Iron Hands could actually be a decent option. So I'm curious to see how this does. I think that with Lunar Blessing Cresselia, Clefairy's usage will definitely be less than it could have been, but I still think this mon will actually be a pretty decent threat in Scarlet and Violet VGC, and I'm looking forward to seeing it in 2024. Moving on though, we do have our first new Pokemon being Diplin. This is a split evolution of Applin. Honestly, I think this mon is pretty interesting, but that's also YouTuber brain pilled, where I think that this mon could actually be kind of like a cool thumbnail mon. It's a cool content mon. We have a new content mon, guys. Syrup Bomb. First interesting thing about this, drops the opponent's speed for 3 different turns. Now, I've heard mixed things on if this thing traps or not. The site doesn't specify that, so I'm going to go off of the fact that it is not confirmed it traps. But it's still pretty cool. We have a move that can drop speed for 3 turns. And the thing that is more interesting to me, though, is Super Sweet Syrup. Now, I will say, this does have a bit of a caveat to it. It's only really cool if Diplin gets a move like Sleep Powder and just has a 100% accurate way of doing Sleep outside of Spore, or if it just gets Spore. But otherwise, though, I mean, it's only really going to be kind of good in like a restricted format, in my opinion. And that's specifically if A, it has really good stats that lean into like a fast support role, B, if it gets really good supportive moves to take advantage of that, and C, assuming that Groudon and Kyogre are so metagame that you could just proceed to start spamming Origin Pulse and Precipice Blade with 100% accuracy and justify the partner slot to do that. If all of those conditions are met, I could see Diplin having a place. But I think that this is going to be more so, if anything, again, like a content Pokemon that's really just ran specifically with the purpose of being a thumbnail Pokemon, and that's about it. It's still kind of cool, though. It looks adorable. This, frankly, is probably my favorite Diplin evolution, but we'll have to see what happens going forward. We do have another new Pokemon, though, being Archaludon. This thing is kind of okay. Realistically, it's probably going to keep the same abilities that Duraludon had. It's probably just going to be like the new King Gambit thingy, which is okay. I mean, Duraludon's an okay Pokemon. It's not going to be as meta as King Gambit is unless they give it some really broken hidden ability. But we have no confirmation on that yet because we don't know its abilities. Oh, wait, hold on. We actually do have its abilities. Stamina and Sturdy. Holy shit, that's insane. Okay, that actually redefines this Pokemon greatly. Another Stamina Pokemon is huge. You could probably throw an Assault Vest on this thing very confidently and just partner with like a Heal Pulse Pokemon or something like Lunar Blessing Cresselia. That's a game changer right there. Realistically, yeah. A sturdy Pokemon, well, Stamina Pokemon next to Lunar Blessing Cresselia with like Assault Vest. Oh my god. This thing also, to make matters worse, has a signature move which is essentially just Electric type Meteor Beam, which is pretty cool. The thing is, though, is that let's see, Archel, yeah, if you have the rain up, okay, that's, I thought I had remembered it being under rain, yeah. Under rain, this thing actually doesn't have to charge at all. So it's essentially just like a better Electric type Meteor Beam. And if you get any sort of good coverage on this thing, I mean, I'm pretty sure Duraludon already gets like Ice Beam, for example, if I remember correctly. Maybe, actually, no, never mind. Duraludon's coverage is really bad. I forgot about that. But even still, honestly, just going off of like the next tier, it already gets like Draco Meteor, you get Steel Beam, you get Body Press, which especially with Stamina will be broken. And then you could just throw on like this signature move right here, or even just ditch one of the stabs for like Tera Blast and throw on the Electro Shot move. So it's like Electro Shot, Tera Blast, Water, Draco Meteor, and then Body Press. And this thing is going to be like an incredible Assault Vest Pokemon. I can't see this thing being unviable. I don't think it's going to have like the same notoriety that King Gambit did, just because Dragon Steel doesn't have... It doesn't match up as well into the format now. Having a Steel that's neutral to Fairy already isn't a huge deal. Well, it's not a huge like thing to be running, really. The thing is, though, is that King Gambit at least had Sucker Punch for priority, which is pretty cool. This mon will definitely be objectively usable for sure. It's gonna be like, it'll probably be like a B tier threat if I had to guess. Like you'll see it at tournaments. It'll probably top cut a couple events. I don't think it's gonna be as noteworthy as King Gambit was, though, where King Gambit was like an actual staple in this format. This will just be a good Pokemon, but it's not going to be super meta or anything, but it'll be cool. Moving on, we do have two new Paradox Pokemon, being Raging Bolt and Iron Crown. Now, I will say that we did get some new confirmation on these Pokemon beyond what is being shown here. This Raging Bolt is going to be Electric Dragon, and Iron Crown is going to be Steel Psychic. So a lot of theories regarding that were true. It seems like that the whole Gen 2 line is going to share the Dragon typing, and the whole Gen 5 one is going to share the Steel typing. Not the Steel typing, the Psychic typing, which is pretty cool. At least for the Gen 5 one, they're going inverse from having the Fighting typing to the Psychic, which is cool. And then I guess the Gen 2 one, I mean, there wasn't really anything to go off of there. I think it could have been kind of cool to go with Electric to nod towards the Bird Trio, but at the same time, that would have been too similar, so I can get why they didn't do that. Regardless, though, Raging Bolt and Iron Crown, they're both pretty cool mons. We have some signature moves for these Pokemon later on, which I'll get to those because we have a whole thing regarding moves, but at the very least, they're both pretty cool mons. I think realistically, they'll be decent and competitive. I mean, I think if nothing else, it's kind of hard to compete with like Walking Wake as the new precedent for newly added Paradox mons whenever they get added. And I mean, Raging Bolt and Iron Crown on paper sound like they're terrifying. Steel Psychic is a really good typing, and if Iron Crown is a really fast offensive Pokemon, that could actually be pretty good. It'll definitely be, both of these will at least be better than Iron Leaves. Raging Bolt also has a really crazy signature move. Well, not crazy, it's definitely like grounded in sense, but it's still a really good signature move for Electric. And if this thing gets like Draco, that signature move, and then like Tera Blast with Protect, you could probably just throw this on a Tailwind team and be fine. Regardless, though, definitely interesting Pokemon. We do have new information on Ogerpon. It looks like it has a terrestrial form. That's really it. And then we also have, let's see, here we go. We have Terapagos, which also has a terrestrial form. That's really all we know on these Pokemon for now. I do have some more things regarding the legends, though, being this image right here. So at the very least, we do have some speculation on the trio for the Indigo mask, Teal mask. We have some information regarding the trio for this. Just based off of moves that they are using, seems like Okidoki is fighting poison. We have Fairy Poison for Pheasantipity, and Monkey Dory is looking like Psychic Poison. This is also obviously just considering the fact that the ability is Toxic Chain, which that's also something I never covered on the channel, but the Toxic Chain essentially just, if it's hit with contact, it's gonna poison, which is pretty cool. The signature ability in these Pokemon is honestly kind of insane. So looking forward to that one at the very least. I think the typings, if true, these are pretty okay. Fairy Poison actually will be kind of interesting because it's a fairy type that could actually really bully other fairies, and it's not like the typical steals, which is pretty cool. But other than that, honestly, I mean, Fighting Poison's not exactly a great typing. We see like Toxic Oak's not really that good, so it'll be interesting to see. And then I won't act like Psychic Poison's the typing that I've been really looking forward to either. These will all be just kind of interesting, but we'll have to see what happens regarding this. They could all either be like huge flops or like really good Pokemon, but we'll have to see more information. Anyway, next up we do have Search in the Timeless Woods. This one's pretty quick. Just looks like there's going to be a new Pokemon that will be hidden here. That's really it. Speaking of new Pokemon, I forgot to pull it up, but it seems like we're getting new information on the 22nd. A lot of people are thinking this is Sinistea regional form off of the fact that a lot of people at Worlds got T-sets when announcing this, and there's been a lot of rumors regarding purple Pokemon turning green. I don't have any more information on that, so that's all I'm going to add for this one. But finally, though, we do have the stuff that was revealed at Worlds, and this is where I think we actually have a lot of interesting information here. Because in my opinion, I think this is where the bulk of the cool info came, and that starts off with the starter Pokemon. So I won't actually play the trailer here, but we did get confirmation on every single starter Pokemon returning to the Scarlet and Violet DLC, as well as Smeargle. And I will say as well, one thing that wasn't really noticed a lot in at least the stream, but in the actual trailer video, we also get confirmation of Shaman returning, because with the Pokemon Home Transfer, we see all of the Sinnoh starters in a photo with Shaman in the game. So all of the starters, Shaman and Smeargle, are all confirmed to return. You probably already knew at the very least if you watched the World stream about the starters and Smeargle, but Shaman is a pretty big deal as well. At least if we do go back to a restricted format, Shaman having at least the Sky form with something like Serene Grace and then Air Slash could actually be a pretty decent impact on the metagame, at least as far as like just the fact that you could flinch stuff down pretty easily with a good Scarf Pokemon that's really obnoxiously fast. That's about it. I won't act like it's really like gonna be some great Pokemon, especially when you start adding mythicals. I mean, Shaman Sky is a pretty terrible one unless it's just completely unrestricted, and in that case, it's okay with like a Groudon partnership or Kyogre partnership. But the starters will actually be pretty impactful. I don't think most of these will be that good, frankly, but a few that do come back because of this that will actually be really noteworthy. We'll go in order of generation, starting with, of course, Venusaur. Venusaur and Blastoise will actually both be kind of cool. Blastoise gets a lot of really cool utility, and I think a lot of people do forget about that because last gen, the big deal was max Cannonade on Rain. But this thing does get some cool things through, like egg moves, for example. Like Follow Me is a pretty cool one that Blastoise gets. So Blastoise could maybe be okay as a support mon. It's going to be outclassed objectively by like Mouse holding Clefairy, but having Follow Me on a Pokemon that could do actual offensive damage with things like Aqua Jet, or even like a Shell Smash Follow Me Pokemon that could be like a mixed hybrid of support early on and then go for offensive. I don't know, there's a lot of things you could do with Blastoise. It's objectively like a really niche Pokemon, though its stats aren't that great, but it could maybe have a place. We see it happen here and there. Venusaur is a huge deal, though, for Sun. Venusaur, in tandem with a lot of the Paradox Pokemon, could actually be very filthy. This is a Pokemon that with Chlorophyll could actually be kind of okay. I will say Venusaur will not be as good as it was last gen due to the fact that Fluttermane will actually be a big deal for this thing offensively. It might require Fluttermane to run like Shadow Ball, not Shadow Ball, Mystical Fire just to try and handle, because otherwise this thing could actually be pretty decent. Venusaur not outpacing Fluttermane is a big deal, but it will at least force Timid again, which is valuable. Realistically, though, Venusaur I think will still be a good Pokemon in this format. It outpaces pretty much everything viable. You're gonna probably see a lot of, if I had to guess, it'll depend on like how viable a lot of things like Moon are, especially on the Tera type, because Moon might actually be a big indicator of what Tera type this runs due to the fact that it might force things like Fairy or like Electric or Rock. But Venusaur will objectively be a really good Tera Pokemon. None of the Gen 2 Pokemon will matter. None of the Gen 3 Pokemon will matter. None of the Gen 4 Pokemon will matter, besides maybe Infernape, I guess. This one's a little bit of a caveat. Just because Infernape does get Fake Out, objectively speaking, it might be an okay Pokemon in the format, but it's probably not going to be viable. The other two, I mean, Empoleon won a Worlds, so I guess maybe that one. And weirdly enough, Torterra could actually be kind of... The Gen 4 ones are kind of a gray area. I think they could all be, like, really hyper niche Pokemon that you might see like a single like 6-3 performance or a single 7-2 performance at a regional for. Torterra could be kind of interesting on Trick Room actually, depending on Terra types, as like an Ursaluna check that could offensively respond. And Polion, again, won a World, and depending on what moves they give it, it could maybe be viable. Especially if Roost comes through like the PLA stuff, that could actually maybe give Empoleon a place in the metagame, though that would probably be a lot bigger of a deal for singles, frankly. And Infernape, again, Fake Out's kind of the big deal here. If it doesn't get Fake Out again, then it gets Fake Out pretty much all the time, so I'm assuming it will. But if that's even still, Fake Out's a lot worse this gen, just due to the fact that Covert Cloak is a thing, though it's not as bad as it was in Dynamax at least, so I don't really know where Infernape will fit. It's probably not going to be that great. Gen 5 Mons, Surf might be okay just because of Glare. The other ones will not be good at all. Well, the other ones, I mean just Emboar. The Samurott stuff is already in game. Gen 6 Mons are already in. Gen 7 Mons are... Oh wait, we have Incineroar and Primarina. Those will both be very viable. Primarina will be a really decent AV check, and in general, it'll be a pretty cool Terramon. It's also just going to be a really good typed Pokemon. Water Fairy is incredible. We've seen Ozu doing a ton of work this format, and I think stuff like FizzDef Calm and Primarina could actually be really good on Trick Room, especially because it's also a much better spin-off sponge to things like Torkoal, and yeah, overall, it'll just be a good Pokemon. Incineroar, it's fucking Incineroar. Even with stuff like Clear Amulet and Covert Cloak, this will be a viable Pokemon. Most teams will probably have to start running at least one of, if not both of those for Incineroar, because it's just that good in the format. But they're already running this anyway, so I'm not too concerned about Incineroar's place in the meta. This will be the hardest format I think Incineroar has ever had to stay viable, even more so than like the restricted formats, purely just because of a lot of the Pokemon that can just outright overwhelm Incineroar offensively, but it could actually be a pretty decent defensive Terra option. Gen 8 starters, we've already had those, and then Gen 9's Gen 9, so nothing else really to go over here. Smeargle will be pretty interesting to see. I think this one could be a decent Spore user with like Moody, of course, like Fake Out, Spore, Spiky Shield, Filler, and it can get Spiky Shield. We do know that at least it can get that off a Chestnut, so those options at least could be decent. Spiky Shield's a great way to break through Sash at the very least. Though I will say with Open Sheet, it'll be interesting because you might see a lot less people actually trying to attack Smeargle in turn 1, just due to the fact, or on turn 2 as well, just due to the fact that you could actually see what viable protect option they have. Other than this though, I mean, Smeargle will still be fucking Smeargle. It'll be interesting to see how these Pokemon do. I think they all actually could have... Well, not all of them. I think a lot of them could have an okay place in the metagame. Besides Incineroar and Primarina, though, and then like the Kanto ones, I don't actually think there will be some huge game-breaking thing for starters, but we'll have to see. Moving on, we do have new moves, starting with Upper Hand. This one's a move that is essentially like Fake Out, but for specifically Pokemon going for priority moves. Now, we don't know the turn of priority that this is. We know it at least works on Bullet Punch. That's the example they used. It would have been cooler to see if they maybe use this against like another Fake Out Pokemon or like Extreme Speed Pokemon even. This thing can at least be +3 priority. That's actually a huge deal. This could be a really good move into stuff like Rage Powder Mungus, E-Speed D-Knight, and that would actually solve a lot of metagame issues. Otherwise, it's kind of an okay move that we'll see use, I guess, in certain Pokemon that have only 3 viable moves, but it'll depend on, one, how high the damage output is, because if it's +1 priority but it hits like base 80 or like 90, that might actually be kind of viable. It only works on priority users though. So my concern is going to be, how fast is this move? I'm hoping it literally replaces everything priority-wise. If this thing could be used to flinch like Protect Pokemon or Helping Hand Pokemon or stuff like that, that could be really cool. Even if it's like a base 30 move, I think it could be really cool. The fact that it's fighting typing though leads me to believe, if I had to guess, this will be like a +2 priority move. If you're like really fast, you might be able to flinch an E-Speed user or a Rage Powder user, but that's about it. It'll still be interesting to see though. Even on like the Hariyama example though, at +2 priority, you could at bare minimum flinch things like Rage Powder and Mungus, which actually isn't that terrible. That's at least something where a Pokemon like Hariyama might be able to even justify this. Moving on though, we do have Psychic Noise. This is a new move as well. This one at the very least, it stops all healing through things like abilities, items, etc. It's essentially Embargo, but with psychic damage, which is pretty cool. So this one could be pretty decent as well. I don't think that it'll be some really metagame move, but it'll be okay. This will be good in certain strategies like Rust Talk Pokemon, maybe like Lunar Blessing, Cresselia, but the issue with Cresselia is you're attacking it now with a move that's doing practically no damage. If this works on Pollen Puff, I think that we could actually start seeing a place on just outright running this over Psychic and stuff like that, but it'll depend on damage output really. We did also get signature moves for the Paradox Mons, but they're not actually on here. I thought they would be. Raging Bolt has an Electric type Sucker Punch, and Cobalions it's Iron Crowns, essentially just Steel type 2-hit guaranteed multi-hit move. We don't have damage outputs for anything, but that's about it. They're going to be pretty good moves, realistically. I think those are two really good signatures, but again, compared to things like Walking Wakes, which outright redefines how you run a Sun team, it's a high standard to have been met, and they just didn't deliver comparatively. We do have one more piece of information, though. This one, in my opinion, is the most damning. This one is the one that I am personally most scared of by a long shot, and it is the 19th Tera type. Now, I will say, a lot of my concerns have been kind of, thankfully, crushed, but we do at least see that this is an effective move on Dragonite. We can see here that this is Dragonite. We see here Rainbow Tera type, and it's just effective when it's clicked. So that's at least good. We know at the bare minimum, this actually rules out a lot of things. It rules out Fairy, Ice, Dragon, all as super effectives for this typing, which is interesting at the very bare minimum. I will say, though, I'm still personally very concerned by this. The big reason being is that if this is just a completely like neutral thing, I'm fine with that. But at the same time, though, a completely over-the-top Pokemon with like this could become a very bad thing, I think. There's a couple ways where I could see this thing being balanced. For one, if you need an item to transform this Tera type, like specifically a held item, and this goes for like a Protean sort of thing, that could be okay, especially if it's like a random type altogether. That could be okay. If this is something where, and I think that one's probably rolled out, to be fair, really effective thing. I think it would have went for like a super effective thing similar to how Legend Plate did. But regardless, the second one where I think this could maybe work is if this is just completely typeless. Completely typeless could be okay at the very least. That might be really broken on defensive Pokemon, to be fair, because getting rid of your weaknesses, you don't care about dealing damage anyway, and that could become a really bad snowball. But we'll have to see. That one could be kind of a gray area. And then the third one would just be if this is only super effective on Tera Pokemon. We have at least, I saw someone mention that as like a theory. That could be interesting to try and tie this back as like the anti-Tera type. For better or worse, that might actually be kind of interesting, because you would only be super effective against one Pokemon per team, and it would help a lot with actually just different Tera types. I think realistically that would be the biggest deal in like a closed sheet setting for things like in-game ladder, and that could actually be kind of cool. I think we might see a lot of really good offensive breakers that are really fast just going for this, and especially Pokemon that don't really care about their defensiveness, because if you're just neutral into everything besides other Tera Pokemon, and you're just faster than those other Tera Pokemon, this could actually be really good. So I am kind of interested to see how that will go. I think it could be a high risk, high reward sort of thing, but I would love to see how this ends up actually doing. With that said, though, hopefully you guys enjoy, and if you did and you want to see more content like this, of course, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Shoutouts to our channel members who for just a couple $1 a month they get some nice bonus content. At some point, I'll probably do a video on all of the new Pokemon the second that the DLCs come out, which will mean that no more pulled content. But at the same time, though, that first member video, when those DLCs come out, I think will be interesting in its own right. So make sure you guys, of course, stay tuned for that. With that said, though, our current channel members are Zeke0, Mia, Bbat, Timo Mueller, Sam, Ryle Plays, Obo, Johannes Bead, Double, Chansey345, Endless Gadgets, and Bambi. Thank you guys so much for your support on the channel. And with that said, I will see you guys later. Until then, peace out, guys.